The ideas of the ruling class are in every epoch the ruling ideas. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels wrote those words in the German Ideology, a manuscript composed between 1845 and 1846. The sentence is often repeated as an accusation. It is more useful as a question about vision. Who teaches an age what deserves to be seen, what may be ignored, and what must appear so natural that no explanation is required? Imagine a man standing in a crowded train before sunrise. He unlocks his phone and enters a world already arranged for him. The news has been selected. The advertisements have been personalized. The measure of success is waiting in photographs of homes, bodies, holidays, and careers. He has not been ordered to admire any of it. No official has placed a command in his hand. He scrolls because the gesture feels private and the preferences feel like his own. Then, the train reaches the financial district. Thousands of people leave their screens, pass through glass doors, and enter buildings designed around schedules they did not create. Each person carries ambitions, anxieties, loyalties, and private memories. Nothing would be more foolish than to call them mindless. Yet their freedom unfolds inside a world of meanings that existed before they arrived. This is the difficulty hidden inside Marx's sentence. Power does not govern only by prohibiting actions. It also shapes the field in which actions become intelligible. It supplies the names of achievement and failure. It helps determine which sacrifices appear responsible, which inequalities appear inevitable, and which alternatives appear too unrealistic even to discuss. Marx and Engels were writing against philosophers who treated history as though it were primarily the history of ideas developing inside consciousness. Their target included the young Hegelians, thinkers who believed that criticism of religion and inherited concepts could release humanity from domination. Marx and Engels did not deny that ideas mattered. They denied that ideas could be understood as independent sovereigns, floating above the material organization of life. Human beings must produce the means of living. They work, exchange, build institutions, divide tasks, inherit property, and enter relationships that distribute power unevenly. Their consciousness develops within these activities. For Marx and Engels, life is not simply the execution of a theory first designed in the mind. Social consciousness is formed through the practical conditions in which people reproduce their world. This is why the quotation continues beyond its famous opening. The class that controls society's material force, they argue, also tends to control its intellectual force. Those who possess the means of material production generally have greater command over the means through which ideas are produced and circulated. In the 19th century, these means included presses, schools, churches, universities, publishing networks, and the institutions of the state. The argument is not that every editor, teacher, priest, or philosopher receives secret instructions from an economic master. Marx's account is more structural and therefore more disturbing. Intellectual life can express dominant material relationships without being coordinated by a single will. Ideas may present the interests of a particular social order as the interests of humanity itself. A historically produced arrangement can acquire the dignity of nature. Consider the language of work. A society may describe extreme competition as a timeless expression of human nature. It may treat poverty as evidence of personal failure, while treating inherited advantage as proof of merit. None of these judgments needs to be announced by a censor. They can be repeated in advice, entertainment, school books, ceremonies, and ordinary conversation until they become the silent grammar of reality. Once that grammar is established, it does not feel like ideology. It feels like common sense. Common sense is necessary. No person can investigate every assumption before acting. We inherit languages, customs, measurements, and practical expectations because life would be impossible if each generation began from nothing. The problem begins when historically contingent arrangements hide inside this necessary trust. A convention becomes a destiny. A privilege becomes a virtue. A limit imposed by institutions is experienced as a limit of imagination. The ruling idea is therefore not always a doctrine written in a manifesto. It may be a contrast that organizes perception, productive and unproductive, deserving and undeserving, realistic and impossible. These words do more than describe the world. They distribute moral light across it. An economic system is never sustained by economics alone. Contracts require legal ideas. Property requires recognized boundaries. Hierarchies require stories about competence, order, or divine intention. Even rebellion needs a vocabulary in which injustice can be named. Material power and symbolic power are not identical, but they continually enter one another. Antonio Gramsci developed this problem under conditions very different from those of Marx's early manuscript. Imprisoned by the Italian fascist regime, Gramsci asked why domination in complex modern societies could not be explained by force alone. His answer centered on hegemony, a form of leadership in which a social group secures consent by presenting its direction as morally and intellectually persuasive. Hegemony does not mean that consent is pure or that coercion disappears. It describes an unstable combination. Government, law, and police remain important. But power also travels through civil society, through schools, newspapers, religious organizations, professional associations, and cultural life. People may accept a social order not because they love every consequence, but because its basic categories define what a serious alternative is allowed to look like. Gramsci's contribution cannot be reduced to a longer version of Marx's sentence. He paid closer attention to the labor required to maintain consent. Dominance must be organized, renewed, negotiated, and sometimes compromised. A ruling group may absorb parts of an opposing demand in order to preserve the larger arrangement. Hegemony is never a finished possession. It is a continuing struggle over the meaning of reality. This helps explain why institutions can contain genuine knowledge while also reproducing hierarchy. A school can teach mathematics accurately and still reward forms of speech associated with social advantage. A newspaper can report facts and still define which events deserve sustained attention. A museum can preserve beauty while presenting one history of civilization as though it were civilization itself. The strongest analysis does not flatten these institutions into machines of deception. It asks how truth and power become entangled without becoming identical. If every lesson were merely propaganda, the concept of education would lose meaning. If every accepted fact were dismissed as a ruling idea, criticism would destroy the standards by which it claims to distinguish truth from power. Art makes this tension visible because art works through appearances while teaching us to distrust them. In 1929, René Magritte painted a careful image of a pipe and placed beneath it a sentence stating that it was not a pipe. The contradiction is only apparent. The viewer is looking at paint arranged into a representation, not at an object that can be filled with tobacco. The treachery of images exposes a habit of mind. We confuse the sign with the thing, the description with the reality, the map with the ground beneath our feet. Political language depends on the same vulnerability. A name can conceal the institution it names. A polished phrase can make organized suffering appear technical, temporary, or necessary. Yet Magritte's painting also warns against a crude theory of manipulation. The words beneath the pipe do not force a single reaction. They interrupt recognition and invite thought. Signs can discipline perception. but they can also reveal the distance between perception and the world. The same cultural field that carries dominant meanings can produce instruments for questioning them. Louis Althusser later offered a different account of ideology. Writing in the 20th century, he argued that institutions do not merely place ideas inside already completed individuals. They help form individuals as subjects. His famous concept of interpellation describes the moment in which a person recognizes that a social call is addressed to them and, through that recognition, takes up an identity. The process begins long before a dramatic political command. A child is named, classified, educated, praised, corrected, and taught to answer for actions. The person becomes capable of social life by entering languages and practices that existed before them. Subjecthood is therefore both an achievement and a form of subjection. We gain a recognizable place in the world, but the terms of recognition are not entirely ours. Althusser called attention to institutions such as schools, families, religious organizations, legal systems, communications, and culture. In his account, these ideological apparatuses contribute to reproducing the social relations on which production depends. The factory needs more than machines and raw materials. It also needs people trained to arrive, obey procedures, accept qualifications, and imagine the future in compatible ways. This argument differs from Gramsci's emphasis on political struggle and consent. Interpellation reaches into the formation of the subject itself. It asks not only why people agree with a system, but how they become the kinds of people who can recognize themselves within its categories. There is danger in taking this argument too far. If every identity is only an effect of ideology, no one remains who could understand or resist ideology. Critique would become a mysterious privilege possessed by the theorist alone. Althusser's framework is most illuminating when it reveals the social conditions of identity, not when it is used to deny every possibility of reflection. The cinema of the industrial age turned this formation of the subject into movement. In Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times, released in 1936, the little tramp works on an assembly line whose speed determines the rhythm of his body. His hands repeat the same motion until the gesture escapes the factory and invades the rest of his behavior. The machine does not merely use his labor. It reorganizes his attention, his reflexes, and his sense of time. Chaplin's comedy works because the body exposes what official language conceals. Industrial efficiency appears rational when described in reports and schedules. On screen, its logic becomes absurd. A human being tries to inhabit a tempo designed for production, and the mismatch erupts as laughter, exhaustion, and breakdown. The film is not a documentary proof of Marx's theory. It is an artistic experiment in perception. It allows an audience to feel how an external rhythm may become an internal compulsion. The factory gate can close at the end of the day, while the factory continues inside the worker's muscles. Michel Foucault approached this internalization from another direction. In Discipline and Punish, published in 1975, he examined the rise of disciplinary techniques in prisons, schools, hospitals, barracks, and workshops. His analysis was not simply a claim that the ruling class broadcasts ideas downward. Power, for Foucault, operates through arrangements of space, observation, examination, classification, and correction. Jeremy Bentham's panopticon gave Foucault his most memorable architectural image. Bentham proposed a circular structure in which cells surrounded a central inspection point. Those inside the cells could be visible to the observer while remaining unable to know when they were actually being watched. The uncertainty was essential. Continuous surveillance could be replaced by the possibility of surveillance. The architecture turned visibility into discipline. A prisoner who might be observed at any moment has reason to behave at every moment. Power becomes more economical because the watched person begins to perform part of the work of the watcher. Foucault used the design as a model for understanding a wider political technology. Modern discipline does not merely crush bodies. It trains them, measures them, compares them, and makes them useful. The student facing an examination, the soldier repeating a drill, and the worker measured against a target are not identical figures. They participate, however, in practices that produce norms and make deviation visible. This is not the same argument as Marx's account of ruling ideas. Marx directs attention toward class relations and the material organization of intellectual production. Foucault studies dispersed techniques that cannot always be reduced to ownership or a single ruling center. His power is productive as well as restrictive. It creates categories, capacities, records, and forms of self-observation. The difference matters. If all power is imagined as propaganda issued from above, we overlook the small procedures through which people become governable. A timetable can shape conduct without declaring an ideology. A ranking can reorganize desire without explaining what a good life is. A form with compulsory boxes can make complex identities administratively invisible. The contemporary screen combines several of these histories without perfectly repeating any of them. Digital platforms do not form one universal ministry of truth. They contain governments, corporations, artists, activists, scholars, entertainers, and ordinary users with conflicting aims. Their recommendation systems do not need to understand a political philosophy in order to influence attention. Selection is already a form of power. No feed can show everything. A ranking system must choose, and its choices depend on objectives, data, and predictions. A published account of YouTube's recommendation system described separate processes for generating possible videos and ranking them, with expected watch time among the signals used in training. Such a system is not a philosopher. It does not possess an ideology in the human sense, but it organizes visibility at extraordinary scale. The result is subtler than traditional censorship. Content does not need to be forbidden in order to disappear from experience. It may simply remain unselected. At the same time, an idea does not become dominant merely because an authority endorses it. It can spread because it reliably captures attention, provokes reaction, confirms identity, or keeps a person watching. This creates a new ambiguity. The feed is personalized, yet the machinery of personalization is shared. Each person receives a private arrangement of the world produced by systems operating across millions of lives. The experience feels individual because the sequence is tailored. The conditions of tailoring remain collective and largely invisible. Here, the man on the train returns to view. His screen knows something about his previous choices. But those previous choices were made inside earlier arrangements of visibility. Preference trains the system, and the system then returns a world shaped by preference. Cause and effect circle each other. It would be an error to conclude that the user is therefore hypnotized. People ignore recommendations, search deliberately, compare sources, change interests, and leave platforms. Algorithms influence a field of action. They do not abolish action. The philosophical problem is not whether choice exists, but how choice is prepared. Advertising has always understood this preparation. Its most effective promise is rarely confined to the object for sale. A watch may signify discipline. A vehicle may signify escape. A cosmetic may signify recognition. The commodity becomes attached to an imagined self, and purchase appears as a step toward becoming that person. Herbert Marcuse examined this union of production, consumption, and identity in One-Dimensional Man, published in 1964. He distinguished vital needs from what he called false needs, desires imposed by particular social interests that perpetuate exhausting labor, aggression, misery, and injustice. His concern was not that pleasure itself is corrupt. It was that satisfaction can bind people to conditions that diminish them. Marcuse's consumer does not obey because deprivation has broken the will. The system offers comforts, entertainments, and identities that make the existing order feel tolerable or complete. Opposition loses depth when every desire can be translated into another product choice. Freedom becomes a selection among prepared alternatives. There is a serious objection to this account. Who has the authority to declare another person's needs false? The critic may replace commercial paternalism with intellectual paternalism. A worker's enjoyment of popular entertainment is not automatically evidence of manipulation. Comfort can be real. Consumption can carry memory, creativity, affection, and social meaning. Marcuse's challenge remains valuable only if it becomes a question rather than a verdict. Does the satisfaction enlarge a person's capacity to live, relate, and judge? Or does it repeatedly repair the exhaustion produced by conditions that remain unexamined? The answer cannot be issued for every life from a single philosophical office. George Orwell imagined a more extreme relation between language and power. In 1984, published in 1949, The State of Oceania develops newspeak to meet the ideological requirements of its ruling party. The language is designed with a shrinking vocabulary and increasingly restricted meanings. Its fictional ambition is not merely to punish forbidden expression, but to make unorthodox thought progressively harder to formulate. Newspeak is not evidence that removing a word mechanically removes a human capacity. Orwell was constructing a political nightmare, not publishing an experiment in linguistics. People can sense injustice before they possess an elegant theory of it, and new words can be invented. Yet the novel identifies a real vulnerability. When public language becomes narrow, euphemistic, or mechanically repetitive, experience becomes harder to communicate and therefore harder to organize politically. An institution that controls definitions can move the boundary between fact and error. Violence becomes pacification. Failure becomes adjustment. Surveillance becomes care. The word does not change the event, but it can alter the social conditions under which the event is recognized. This is where propaganda differs from simple lying. A lie conceals a fact. A complete ideological language tries to reorganize the standards by which facts become meaningful. It supplies explanations in advance and trains the listener to experience contradiction as disloyalty. Hannah Arendt studied this danger in her analysis of totalitarianism. For Arendt, ideology in the totalitarian sense was not merely a collection of biased opinions. It offered a logic that claimed to explain history completely, drawing consequences from a single premise while refusing correction by unpredictable reality. Its attraction grew under conditions of isolation and loneliness, when shared experience and common judgment had been weakened. Arendt's analysis must not be casually applied to every advertisement, school rule, or political disagreement. Totalitarian domination is a specific historical phenomenon, not a dramatic synonym for influence. Her warning is sharper than that. When a theory becomes immune to experience, coherence can become an enemy of truth. The system explains every objection as further proof of the system. Ideology criticism can fall into the same trap. If every disagreement is dismissed as evidence that the other person has been programmed, the critic has built a prison with no possible exit. Agreement proves the theory, and resistance also proves the theory. A method designed to expose domination becomes incapable of learning. This is the strongest challenge to a careless reading of Marx's quotation. People are not blank surfaces on which ruling ideas are printed. They interpret, negotiate, mock, combine, and reject what institutions offer them. Families transmit memories that official histories neglect. Workers develop knowledge unavailable to managers. Audiences transform commercial images into meanings their producers never intended. Even the ruling class is not a single mind. Its members compete, disagree, and support institutions whose consequences they cannot fully control. Modern societies contain rival centers of wealth, expertise, law, media, and political authority. An idea may become influential because it explains evidence well, because it coordinates necessary cooperation, or because people find it just. Dominance alone does not prove falsehood. Science offers the clearest warning against reducing truth to social position. Scientific institutions are shaped by funding, prestige, and history. But a claim about nature is not refuted by identifying the class of the person who made it. Evidence must still be examined. Social explanation can reveal why a claim receives attention. It cannot by itself determine whether the claim is true. Shared norms are equally ambiguous. Trust, reciprocity, legal equality, and public responsibility can stabilize an unjust order, but they can also protect people from arbitrary power. Not every restraint is enslavement. A language makes expression possible precisely because speakers accept rules they did not individually invent. Freedom cannot mean existing without influence. A self without inheritance, language, relationship, or history would not be liberated. It would be empty. The meaningful question is whether influences can be made visible, criticized, revised, and answered by those who live under them. Art demonstrates this possibility. Goya did not escape representation. He used it against established representation. The artist selected, framed, exaggerated, and arranged, but did so in order to break the polished image of glory. Art became a conflict over what could be seen. Chaplin transformed industrial discipline into comedy. Magritte separated the object from its name. Orwell invented a language to reveal the political stakes of language. None of them stood outside society. Their work used inherited forms to expose the limits of inherited vision. This is why hegemony is never complete. Every dominant vocabulary contains tensions produced by the world it tries to organize. A society that praises freedom creates a language through which its unfreedoms can be accused. A school that teaches history may give students the evidence needed to challenge its omissions. A technology built to capture attention may circulate a work that teaches attention to resist capture. Resistance, however, is not guaranteed by contradiction. Awareness can become another performance. A person may learn the vocabulary of critique, display it as an identity, and continue unchanged. The market can sell rebellion as a style. Institutions can celebrate dissent in forms that leave their structure untouched. Critical thought begins more quietly. It asks where an idea came from, which practices sustain it, whose experience it excludes, and what evidence could prove it wrong. It compares the freedom promised by a system with the capacities that system actually creates. It also turns its suspicion inward. The critic is not exempt from the ruling ideas of an age. Opposition can harden into ritual. A theory can become a badge of belonging. The desire to expose manipulation can satisfy a deeper desire to feel untouched by manipulation. No one earns independence merely by announcing that everyone else is asleep. Marx's sentence remains powerful because it denies innocence to the world of ideas. Concepts have histories. Institutions have material conditions. The ability to speak, publish, educate, classify, and attract attention is distributed unequally. What appears universal may carry the mark of those with the greatest power to make their experience public. But the sentence should not be turned into a new superstition. The ruling ideas are not the only ideas. Material dominance is not intellectual omnipotence. Human beings are formed by structures, yet they also act together to alter structures. They inherit languages, yet languages change through use. They enter history under conditions they did not choose, but history does not proceed without what they do. The train has now reached the end of its line. The man looks once more at the screen in his hand. Nothing on it has suddenly become unreal. The news may be accurate, the work may be necessary, the object advertised to him may be useful, beautiful, or desired for reasons that deserve respect. What has changed is the apparent privacy of the moment. His choice now stands inside a larger architecture of production, language, ranking, memory, and recognition. He can see that the self-choosing is neither a puppet nor a sovereign kingdom. It is a meeting place where history becomes personal. He closes the screen, not because freedom requires silence, but because judgment sometimes requires an interruption. For a few seconds, no prepared image tells him what the morning means. The glass of the train window reflects his face over the city behind it. The reflection is his own. The world inside it is not.